Alright everyone, welcome back to Crypto Brain. And before we begin today's market analysis, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because on this channel we focus on logic, market structure and real liquidity behavior, rather than hype and DeFi. You want to stay ahead of developing crypto narratives. This is exactly where you want to be. Now today's discussion revolves around a developing narrative that has started circulating across the market involving the token. Content reference: Index Toshi Association, connected to one of the most influential financial firms in the world. Content reference: and Blackrock institutional attention begins appearing around a smaller market capacity. Experienced traders immediately start watching the market very closely. Because in financial markets, institutional narratives often act as catalysts that change liquidity dynamics, and the reason this matters is simple. Institutions bring scale when large financial entities begin interacting with an ecosystem. The first thing that usually follows is a dramatic expansion in attention, followed by deeper liquidity entering the market. Over the last several trading sessions, analysts have begun discussing a possible scenario where the Toshi ecosystem could align itself with broader institutional infrastructure conversations, and although the market always treats early narratives carefully, the reason this discussion has gained traction is because traders are beginning to notice structural changes inside the market itself. The first signal appearing on the charts is the behavior of trading volume, because volume represents participation, and participation represents capital, and recently the Toshi market has started showing moments where volume increases while price stabilizes, which often signals that supply pressure is beginning to weaken, while new buyers quietly begin entering the market. This is where the concept of accumulation becomes important, because large investors rarely buy during hype-driven rallies. Instead, they accumulated during consolidation phases when the market is relatively calm and price movement appears slow to the average observer. When whales begin accumulating positions, they usually distribute their orders over time rather than executing one massive trade, and this behavior allows them to absorb available supply while avoiding sudden price spikes that would attract too much public attention. When enough supply has been absorbed, a liquidity base begins forming beneath the market, and liquidity bases are critical because once the market has absorbed the majority of available selling pressure, the next phase of 10 becomes much more aggressive, as even moderated demand can push prices upward quickly. Now, if we combine this behavior with the institutional narrative currently circulating around Toshi, the market begins forming a very interesting picture, because when accumulation behavior appears at the same time, that institutional discussion begins, centering the narrative. Traders start evaluating the probability of a liquidity expansion cycle. Institutional entities such as Blackrock operate a scale that most retail traders cannot even imagine. Their involvement in digital asset ecosystems historically changes the level of attention an asset receives, and once institutional level discussion enters the public narrative, it often attracts a new class of investors who previously were not watching the asset at all, but to properly evaluate the potential scale of any move. We also need to examine market capitalization logic, because market cap determines how much capital is required to move an asset's price, and compared with large established cryptocurrencies' smaller market cap, tokens can react much more dramatically when new liquidity begins centering the ecosystem. In practical terms, this means that if the Toshi ecosystem begins attracting institutional attention on or broader infrastructure-level partnerships, the percentage price movement could become significantly larger than what most traders initially expect, because the amount of capital required to influence price is still relatively small compared with major crypto assets. This is one of the fundamental characteristics of early-stage discovery cycles within the digital asset market, where assets move quietly for extended periods of time before suddenly accelerating once the broader market begins recognizing their narrative. Right now, analysts watch in the Toshi market are paying attention to three very specific signals. The first is trading volume expansion, this condis behavior that resembles whale accumulation, and the third is the continued development of institutional-level narratives surrounding the ecosystem. When these three elements begin aligning simultaneously, markets often enter what traders describe as the discovery phase, which is the stage where price begins searching for a complete new valuation level, and during discovery phases, volatility usually increases significantly, because the market is attempting to determine where the asset should realistically be valued. However, experienced analysts always remain disciplined during these periods because volatility works in both directions. While strong upward moves can appear quickly, corrections can also occur just as fast, which is why professional traders focus on structural signals rather than emotional excitement. Right now, the structure forming around Toshi is what has the market paying attention, because if accumulation continues, if participation expands, and if institutional narratives continue developing, the probability of a stronger momentum cycle gradually increases. And historically, the most explosive movements in crypto rarely begin when the entire market is already watching. They usually begin quietly, while only a small group of analysts recognize the structural signals developing beneath the surface. For now, the most intelligent approach is observation, watching liquidity behavior, monitoring large wallet activity, and paying attention to any further developments surrounding the ecosystem. Narrative, because those are the indicators that usually appear before major market expansions, and if the current structure continues evolving the way it is now, the coming weeks could become extremely interesting for the market surrounding. Content reference index equals Toshi Ain. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more professional crypto breakdowns. Stay analytical, stay informed, and remember, in crypto, the biggest opportunities often begin long before the majority of the market even realizes what is happening.